If you've ever wanted to convert your mechanical engine-driven fan to an electric set of fans to gain slightly more horsepower, slightly better fuel economy, better cooling, just a more efficient setup, this is your day, because that's what we're going to do today on the Ford Expedition 5.4 liter engine. If you've watched the other videos, we took the mechanical fan off when we were doing the intake manifold. So with all of that removed, the radiator out of the truck, we're going to mount electric fans to the radiator, get them wired in as part of our upgrades on the Expedition, and stay tuned, might see something interesting. Welcome to A&A. This is the fan setup that I bought. This is, let's see what this thing is called. This came from, what is that? F&F Dynamics, M&F, whatever that logo is supposed to be. Anyway, got this set up. It's supposed to be their heavy duty, you know, closest to factory requirements for the truck. It's a dual fan setup. One fan's larger than the other one. This got the radiator laying here. I've already got the fans mounted. They're just, your radiator has a top and bottom rail. So this is the top of the radiator. They come with these little L brackets on them for the top. You drill holes in your rail and you bolt those down. For the bottom, okay, it comes with some of this stuff right here. You're supposed to push these. It's not a zip tie. It's kind of like a plastic. Plastic retainer thing or whatever. You're supposed to push this through your radiator and attach it to the other side. Push it through this hole, through your radiator on the other side, and then you attach the little retainer. I'm not a big fan of pushing anything through my radiator, so we're not going to use that. What I don't mind doing is utilizing this top and bottom rail. So the top rail, we've got bolted down. Okay, so on the bottom, there was a hole in the rail right there. So I utilized the hole in the rail and I drilled a small hole in the aluminum shroud that comes pre-assembled to your fans, which it's a pretty nice setup. Drilled a hole in that and ran a zip tie through. Got it holding nice and tight. Same thing on the other fan, other side. Didn't have anything in the middle as far as holes in the bottom rail. This is the bottom of the radiator. So I had to kind of improvise. Yeah, it looks a little janky, but I had more room to get a sheet metal screw through the rail here than I did here. Didn't have enough room to get one through here. So this one's anchored to this bottom rail very securely. So then I just tied the two shrouds together. A little piece of aluminum bar with some pop rivets. So they're secured and in place, and that's the first step. You got to get them mounted securely to your radiator. So that's where I'm at right now. The next step is getting the radiator back into the vehicle, and I will go ahead and put the bottom radiator hose on, and then it'll be down to the wiring. So kit did come with all the wiring necessary. This is a fan control module. This is another part of it, another fan control module. Anyway, it's supposed to be adjustable. Supposed to be an adjustment screw somewhere on this thing to adjust where the fans kick on at. Truck thermostat is 195-degree thermostat, so I'll probably have it kick on at about 210, something like that. Best way to test if the electric fans are putting too much of a load on your battery or your alternator. The battery is probably not going to be the issue. Their alternator may be. If your alternator is not strong enough, if it's not putting out enough amps, then this is going to read, low. 14.3 volts or higher. Make sure your vehicle is at operating temperature at idle. The voltage for a proper working electrical system will be 14.3 to 14.7. Anything under 14.3 indicates a weak or weakening electrical system. It should be monitored. If it gets worse, should be addressed. So that's pretty cool. I like that. If I'm having issues, I'll probably check to see if I can get a higher output alternator. That would be my first step. My hope was that the truck would have enough room in the engine compartment that I might could go to 2 batteries. That's something I would really like to have, but I don't think I'm going to have the room to do that because I've got a windshield washer reservoir I haven't installed yet, and so that's going to take up the space right beside the battery that's in there. That would be an ideal spot to put a second battery, but then I'd have to figure out where to put the windshield washer reservoir, and occasionally you do need those. So anyway, let me get the radiator mounted back in the truck. We'll go from there. Got our battery back in the truck. Got the windshield washer reservoir back in there. So we've got our fans mounted onto the radiator. I've got the radiator back in the vehicle. So what's left now is we have to attach the transmission lines back to the radiator. I have to put that bottom radiator hose on. Before I put the top hose on, we want to get the wiring done for these fans. Now, the next, I guess, critical thing is going to be where to locate the control module, where all of these wires are going to be coming out of, going to the fan and going to the battery. There's also, you have to run a wire to the air conditioner clutch, so that when the air conditioner comes on, this fan right over there, the small one, it comes on and runs as long as the air conditioner's on. So we got to figure out where to mount that thing, and I'm thinking it's going to need to be on the passenger side somewhere. There is a temperature probe that we are going to have to locate where the water is coming out of the engine and going into the radiator, which is your top hose. So the temperature probe slides into the fins there. So you have the lesser of two evils. You can slide the probe in between the fins so that it senses the temperature of the water that's coming back into the radiator. When it gets, a certain temperature, I'm thinking, 200, 210 degrees, then your large fan comes on. The only other option is they did include a temperature sensor that you can drill a hole into your tank, your side tank of your radiator, and you can tap it and you can thread it in. I'm certainly not a fan of that. So we're going to do the probe deal. Okay, I've chosen a mounting place for our control module, and it's right here on the firewall. It's really about the only place left to me. There's really nowhere else but on the firewall, and it says to mount it away from heat. I mean, you know, it's an engine compartment, so there's going to be a little heat. Just not mounting it close to any exhaust or, you know, anything like that. But I think that's a good spot. I think all the wires that are provided, I believe, is going to reach to everything. I sure hope so. But, you know, if not, we can splice some, I guess. Step one of the wiring was to connect the red wire to the positive of the battery. So tucked it behind the starter solenoid here. I'm gonna run it across this fusible link. I'm gonna get it all, you know, once we get all the wires connected, we'll clean it up, we'll tape it up, we'll make it look as inconspicuous as possible. So first step done, red wire run to the positive of the battery. Got our control module connected. We've still got all these to run, and so I'll just tell you what colors go where. It comes with some pretty good instructions. Okay, let's see. Red, it's attached to the positive side of the battery. The orange, attached to small fan, positive lead. All right, so there's our small fan. There's our positive lead. Okay, cool. Blue, attached to blue wire on the fan relay harness. All right, so we don't have our relay. It's the other part in the box. And I'm guessing we'll probably mount it right there beside, I guess right there beside that. We'll just have to look and see if that's a good idea or not. It has wires of its own, and so got that. Got to make sure that if I mount it here, got to make sure that you know, I don't see that, oh, the wires are short for a reason and I should have mounted it somewhere else. But right now, without, you know, having done much else on this project, might just put it right there. So let me get a little more done and I'll bring you back. Well, it's about dark 30 and I'm going to call this thing finished as far as the electric fans, except for this. I need to probably zip tie that. I got the wires run as best I could. Let me go through what I did. Get my handy dandy instructions here. Go through what I did. All right, you were here when we did step one. We attached the red wire to the positive side of the battery, and this is what they're calling the control module, and this over here is what they call the fan relay. So the red wire from the control module, we went to the positive side of the battery. Orange attached to the small fan positive, and so we have that. We got a small fan positive. There's the orange, and I've taped it to the cruise control cable just to kind of camouflage it as much as I could. And then over here, where hopefully nobody's going to be looking, I went straight over to the transmission line that goes into the radiator. So, you know, that's a problem with some of this stuff is, you know, I'd love to run the wires around the firewall, around the side, around the front. You just run out of places, you know. So that's the orange. The blue attaches to the blue. The blue from the control module attaches to the blue on the fan relay. Yellow attached to an ignition switch 12-volt system. All right, so our 12-volt source. This is where I ran into a little problem because here in the engine bay, there's not a lot of things that are are switched on with the ignition switch, and then when the ignition switch is turned off, you have no more 12 volt. So the only other option you have is to attach it to any 12 volt source in the engine compartment and basically have 12 volts whether the key is on or off. The only problem with that is you know, you go for a drive, and when you get to where you're going and you shut the car off, if the fans have not cooled your radiator enough to drop it below that 210 degrees, whatever we set it at, then it's going to run until it does cool it off enough. So that could drain your battery. It's a possibility. If I have that happen, you know, one time, then I'm going to have to run the wire into the cabin and find a 12 volt source that's on and off with the ignition. So that's the yellow wire you see right here. This is always hot. This is your starter solenoid or a starter switch. So that's always hot. Runs straight from the positive here, and when you turn your key, it goes to the starter to turn your engine over. All right, so we did that. Like I say though, if I have a problem with it draining the battery one time, then you know, we can go into the fuse panel and find a source there that can be turned off with the ignition switch. The green attached to the positive wire on the air conditioning clutch. All right, so I did that. At least I think I did. It's kind of dark. So there it is. Black attached to a good ground, chassis ground. Do the same with the ground lead off the fan motor. All right, so there's a lot of grounds, especially in the engine compartment, that you can attach to. You know, I've got one there. There was a ground point there. That one there, I've got two things going to it. So you've got numerous grounding points for that. Okay, so let's see what else. Okay, the only thing we did then was, so I took care of the control module. Then you still got some wires on the fan relay. So the blue connected to the blue on the control module. But then you have some of the others here. The yellow connects to the battery with a fuse. Again, back to the old positive post of the battery. I'm going to look for some type of a load center, power center, whatever, that's going to clean this mess up, because I don't like that. Anyway, so we did that. Okay, blue to blue, yellow to the battery, black to ground. Again, right there. And then the red to the large fan. All right, so I did that, and I kind of went all the way around behind all that stuff, behind the battery, behind the washer fluid reservoir, came up on the top of the radiator, and that's this black wire, because the red wire was too short. I had some real heavy black, so I'm using that. So I've got that attached to the red wire of the large fan. So every wire has a connection. Everything is hooked up, I believe, the way it's supposed to be. First, let me talk to you about the electric fans. They're working great. I made a few modifications to the way we had it originally done per their instructions for a couple of reasons. Number one, Okay, so the large fan operates, it turns on and off via this sensor probe that you insert between the fins and the radiator. So when it gets to your cut on temperature, which you can set, if you pull this relay off, there's a tiny screw in there, and there's a minus and a plus. Turn it towards the minus. There's no marks or anything on it, no numbers, but there's a range that it turns on and off. I think it goes from 185 to, I don't know, to something. So basically what I did was I just set it about halfway, and that surprisingly enough turns out to be just about right for me. So when this fan turns on, when it gets to the correct temperature, and this is the inlet of your radiator. This is where the water comes out of the engine. You know, when your thermostat opens, lets the water through, outlet of the engine, inlet of the radiator, that's where you want your probe. That's going to read what the hottest temperature is, and that's when you want your fan to come on, when it reaches that temperature. All right, so that's that. The small fan, they wanted it wired to the compressor clutch so that when you turn your air conditioner on, that fan ran continuously. As long as the air conditioner was on, it was running. I didn't like that for a number of reasons. First of all, I guess, and most importantly, you know, if you're cruising interstate speeds and you've got the air conditioner on, you don't need that extra fan running continuously, pulling on your charging system. And there's no way, you know, to set that or control it otherwise. If you're stopped in traffic and the vehicle's running a little hot and it's 100 degrees outside and you would really like to have a little AC so you don't die, that's when you need that fan. So I have that small fan wired to a toggle switch inside the cab by my steering wheel. I want to control when that fan runs and when it doesn't run. So I've wired it basically, the hot wire for that fan goes to a continual 12-volt source, and the ground wire is what I have switched inside the truck. When you're putting a toggle switch to control something like that, it's way better to switch the ground wire. You don't want your main current wire to go through a toggle switch. No matter what it's rated at, it's just not a good idea. So I took the ground all the way through into the cabin and spliced in a toggle switch. So it is off until I want it to be on. And let's see what other modifications we did to the fans. I believe that's it. And so the fans I'm very pleased with. Now here's something else too. I had wired our control module. There was this little yellow wire you see up here. It was, instructions said to wire it to an ignition switch 12-volt source. Well, you know, wasn't really thinking that it would do much harm to connect it to a continual 12-volt source. I mean, the fans are going to run after you switch your vehicle off until it cools down. But what I was running into was it was actually pulling my battery down to where I had some really slow and iffy starts when I got ready to crank the truck the next time. So I did find a 12-volt switch source under here. If you'll just sit and stare and long enough and just look, there's an awful lot of pigtails under this hood. You don't want to tie into, like, you know, fuel related stuff, anything like that, but there's a ton of all kind of sensors and stuff like that. So right here is what they call a purge valve. It's part of your vacuum tree. It has a pigtail on it. I'm sure that's some type of sensor or whatever, but it has a switched hot wire. Ignition switch is on, that's hot. Ignition switch is off, it's dead. So I simply spliced into that. All we need is a trigger for the relay. So that worked out really well. It's really perfect. I didn't want to actually go into the cabin with it, inside the truck, under the dash. There's just not a lot of room under there, you know, with a guy my size trying to crawl around on the floorboard, searching out a wire to splice into. It's not fun. That worked out great. So the fans I'm extremely pleased with. The other thing I've realized, and this has to do with the little plug-in charging device. Get my key, I'll show you. What they sent with the kit. What they sent with the kit, it's a USB 12-volt cigarette lighter USB port. That reads what you're charging or what you have. Right now we've got 10.2 volts. All right, that's low. That's low. It may not start the truck, but you know what? Let's give it a shot. Let's see if it will, and I'll show you how it works. All right, it started the truck. So that's what we're charging at. So we're charging at 14.2, 14, 14.1, 13.9, 14. Let's cut the AC on. 14.1. Let's turn the auxiliary fan or the fan that's I've got a switch. Let's turn that on. So we're really loading it up, and now we're only getting 13.9, 13.8. That is not good enough. 14.2, 14.1, that's too weak. Switch the fan off. Turn the air conditioner off. We're starting to get back up to 14.3, 14.4, 14.3, 14.2. All right, so what I have learned is that is not sufficient. And what that means is alternator replacement. Now, I don't think the alternator in this truck has ever been replaced. That could be why we're seeing some weak charging numbers. So probably what I'll do is I'll get a high output alternator and put it on this truck. That should take care of that. And so stock is 130 amps. You can get a 240 amp alternator, of course, on the eBays for about $100 and sometimes less. So definitely the way Andy's going to go with this. But that's a really neat little gadget they've got right there. You can drive, sit in the truck, whatever. It tells you exactly what you're charging. Love that. All right, so that's the fans. All right, the fans are off now. Now before I wired into the purge valve over there, that fan would run until it cooled off, and it would cut off. But now after it cut off, you know, there's still heat in here, and the little sensor would heat back up. Fan would come back on. It would come on and off multiple times before it cools off enough to not trip the sensor. That's what was running the battery down. But now with the switched power source, it's off. It's not going to run the battery down. The cold air intake, phenomenal. Extremely easy to put on. You basically just take the old one that came off, you take it apart, and it's easy to get apart. Your mass airflow sensor is this whole black thing right here. It's inside of your original, this big thing, and you just take a flat blade screwdriver and you pop a little cover off, and it just all comes apart. So you take this, of course you need this because it's a sensor. You got the little pigtail. There's another, I think this is your air temperature sensor right here. Got some vacuum lines there. It's all real simple. I love it. It looks good, and I can tell you right now that when I pull out on the road and I mash the accelerator, there is much improvement in the response. There's not as much drag mashing on the accelerator. So very pleased. It's drivable. We can drive it right now. Got to do some cleaning up on the inside. Sonic Cup from 2018. So tell me what you guys think. Give me some comments, suggestions. Give me some leads on some wheels and tires. Y'all have a good day. Hang in there with me. Subscribe. Tell your friends about us.